Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather at the river, the beautiful, beautiful river. Gathered with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Lights of the World, ichitipa a rendition. We'll make use of hymn 144. I'm pressing on the upward way, new heights I'm gaining every day, still praying as I onward bound. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land. A higher place that I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground. I want to scale the utmost height and catch a glimpse of glory bright. But still I pray to heaven I found. Lord, lead me up to higher ground. Lord, lift me up and let me stand by faith on heaven's stable land, a higher place that I have found. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a mountain, I've got joy like a mountain, I've got joy like a mountain in my soul. I've got joy like a mountain, I've got joy like a mountain, I've got joy like a mountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace, love and joy like a river. I've got peace, love and joy like a river. I've got peace, love and joy like a river in my soul. I've got peace, love and joy like a river. I've got peace, love and joy like a river. I've got peace, love and joy like a river in my soul.
Amen.
Hello, is that on? Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, church. We want to thank God for affording us this opportunity to meet this afternoon. I'm going to ask Elder Matija to give us a song. After that, we will ask Pastor to pray for us as we then move into our today's afternoon discussion. I had my choristers, they disappeared. Please come, guys, give us a song. Then Pastor will pray for us, and then we will start this afternoon's discussion.
Make use of 124. The church is required to stand. Not I, but Christ, be honored, loved, exalted. Not I, but Christ, be seen, be known, be heard. Not I, but Christ, in every look and action. Not I, but Christ, in every thought and word. Not I, but Christ, to gently soothe in sorrow. Not I, but Christ, to wipe the falling tear. Not I, but Christ, to lift the weary burden. Not I, but Christ, to hush away all fear. Christ, only Christ, no idle word of falling. Christ, only Christ, no needless bursting sound. Christ, only Christ, no self-important bearing. Christ, only Christ, no trace of I is found. Not I, but Christ, my every need supplying. Not I, but Christ, my strength and help to be. Christ, only Christ, for body, soul, and spirit. Christ, only Christ, He and eternally.
Thank you, Pastor. Church, welcome to this afternoon discussion. We're going to make it quite an informal discussion so that all of us have an opportunity to react to things, also have contributions. There are some people amongst you who have well read and who are well read and who have some knowledge about stuff. So really it's a discussion. We're here to facilitate this kind of discussion, isn't it? So let's feel free to discuss and interact. It's not a sermon. And even for us here, we are not going to be like, so formal, and also that we'll be flipping between pages as well, trying to we speak to things so that it's an informal as formal as it is. Let me start by introductions. I will introduce myself, and then I will also ask Dr. Mbiriri to introduce herself, and then from there I will give you a preamble of our, so that some kind of content. It's important that you follow along because it will be useful for our discussions. So, Temba and Nduna are my names. I'm a nutritionist by training, by the way. I also have some training in public health. I've been practicing nutrition, I would say 17 to 20 years, depending on how you count. It can be in that range, between 17 to 20 years, thereabout, depending on how you count sometimes. If you count some of the years in school, because I'm that notorious guy who would work and then also leave work, go to school and come back to work, so those years are not like linear. Geography-wise, I have been blessed by God to have worked in a number of countries. God has been very gracious. If I'm to mention a few, I think I've worked in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia, doing the same kind of stuff. I've worked in Swaziland, I think. I've worked in Somalia. I've worked in northern Nigeria. I've done some work in Sudan. And I've done some work in South Sudan as well. I've done some work here in Zimbabwe, of course. I've done some work in Ethiopia. I think I spent quite some time in Ethiopia. I've done some work in Angola. And more recently, I know some of you saw I disappeared in action for quite some months. I'd gone back to Ethiopia where I did some 2 months work there. So I've been in nutrition around, so if there are young students or we are still studying, today I'm in good mood because doctors didn't disappoint. So I'm able to speak to you about those things if you want to know. If you want to try some other day, you need a bit of luck. But today I'm in good spirits, so if there's one who wants to understand more about that, I'll be good to share some stuff. So I've been in the trenches a little bit about this. So I want now to turn over to Dr. Mbiriri to also introduce herself a little bit more. Then I'll give you a bit of content that will lead to some discussion, and then all of us get to discuss. Remember, we are talking about food environment, diets, health and nutrition outcomes, isn't it? We want to look at the food environments and then look at how those environments influence our diets, and then how these diets also influence our health and nutrition outcomes. Do you see the logic? Because all this starts from the environment, the food environment. We'll discuss what that is. Then the diets, because they are hinged on the type of environment that we function in. And then these diets have a bearing on how we become. I'm almost bad when you look at me because I'm also malnourished. But it can be worse. It could be worse if I didn't do what I'm doing. So I'm doing a good job. It could easily be worse than this. So, so that's what we are going to be discussing. With this, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Mbiriri to also introduce herself, and then I'll give you content, and then I'll turn over to her. We start the discussion. I know there are things you are waiting for. The results, right? We have them. We have them. We have the results. And also, we ate some food that we are going also to talk about here as part of the discussion. I'm just reminding you that I'm aware of those things. So don't be anxious. I'm coming. It's almost there, Dr. Mbiriri.
Thank you. I'm Alisa Mbiriri. I'm a preventive health and lifestyle medicine specialist. My doctorate is public health with special emphasis in preventive health, and a master's in lifestyle medicine, but I have a background in food science and nutrition. My first master's is food science and nutrition. I've worked right now I'm practicing as a public health specialist working on non-communicable diseases. And also I run a lifestyle medicine clinic where I help assist patients with non-communicable diseases on lifestyle management of the diseases. I'm also into academia. I've been teaching public health in Asia, and here I teach food science and nutrition. So I teach for several universities at the moment.
Thank you very much, Doc. You see, it couldn't be anyone better to come and discuss this topic. So that's why I said those who decided to go home is their fault. They are going to miss some of the things we need to help ourselves, isn't it? I want to provoke you a little bit before we go into content. Why do we have to eat anyway? Why do we have to bother eating? I mean, honestly speaking, why do we have to? I've shocked you. I asked the question you didn't expect, right? Dr. Savola, why do we have to eat anyway? He said first there are many more. Okay. We need energy. Okay. We have a mouth. We have to make use of it, isn't it? It can't be just furniture here without doing stuff. But also we need energy. Why do we have to eat? Elder Matish. He says sometimes foods are nice. It's nice, feels good to eat, isn't it? So we are also going to talk about things to do what we call organoleptic properties. But we are going to make it easy for you. Shepherdess. She says we eat because we need nutrients. Yes. I'm still taking responses. Why do we have to eat? I mean, honestly, if you have been sick, like Pastor said, have you found how difficult it is to eat? Even 2 spoons, you sweat like me, 2 spoons eating. It's quite some job to eat. So why do you have to do it? Why can't we just stop? Yes, Pastor. Growth and development. Do I still need to grow? Okay. I still need to grow. Vundla, why do we have to bother ourselves eating? Food is good. Okay, Mrs. Vundla, if we stopped eating, what is the problem? We will die. How many people think if we stop eating, we'll die? So people, you are eating because you are afraid of dying. Okay, all right. If we had something that will prevent us from dying, would we eat anyway? Why, Vundla? You said, someone said because we'll die, but here is another thing that prevents us from dying. Should we continue eating? Why? Mrs. Fungura, what would happen if we stopped eating, all of us? Okay. What will start happening to someone if they didn't eat well? Or somebody gets sick, they start not eating well? What do we start seeing? Say again? Okay. They become irritable, and I'm one of those. Ruth knows that. If you find I'm a bit temperamental and stuff like that, she would know how to deal with that, because it's one of the things that make me very grumpy. When I'm hungry, I'm very grumpy. But there's another, she said you start seeing someone getting what? You get thin, isn't it? Why? The body starts eating itself, isn't it? Because there are certain biochemical processes that needs to go on. So sometimes if the body doesn't have external sources, it starts using what is inside itself until such a time when everything else is exhausted. That's why you start losing lean mass, because the protein that is there for all the biochemical processes, fighting infection and all that, it starts eating itself, isn't it? But what happens to children, I'm just trying to introduce the topic, so you see that food is part of us. What about children? If they don't eat, what happens? Malnutrition. Okay. Malnutrition, okay, fine, it's okay. What is malnutrition? I'll give you a clue. Mal means what? Bad, isn't it? Mal means bad. So that means malnutrition is bad what? Bad nutrition. By the way, I think sometimes we forget that malnutrition is both under and over. Did you know that? I'm almost malnourished, me, the way I'm here. This is malnutrition you see here. But remember, remember I said it could be worse, isn't it? If I didn't do what I do, it could be worse. Yes. Mal means bad, right? Bad nutrition. It means over and what? And under. And for children, there's what we call stunting, isn't it? Have you ever heard about stunting? A child is stunted because they are what? A stunted child is shorter than their age, isn't it? We'll talk more about that. And then wasted, they are thin, isn't it? They are technical terms we used to. Basically, I'm trying to introduce to you why food is also important for us, isn't it? If we didn't eat, we will get malnourished. And today we want to get some nuggets on how because let me say this before I give you some bit of content that I want to talk about. If you don't have a good idea of what we are talking about here, because I think we need to talk about nutrients a little bit, that you said, Shepherdess, because if you don't quite have a good idea of that, you run a risk of feeding your body or your family and not nourishing it. Did you get it? Sometimes we feed ourselves and we don't nourish ourselves. You need to know some certain nuggets to go to a higher standard, like Pastor said. You have to go beyond just feeding your body. But doing what? Nourish the body. If we are going to forget everything else, mind but that one. Sometimes we feed ourselves and our children and our families, but we don't what? Mind the gap, isn't it? We want to help each other so that we move a step higher from just feeding bodies, but what? Nourishing them, isn't it? So it's important that we understand that. I have seen people, we are going to talk about food environment, but I've seen people going to a place and they buy a Coke and these chips, they eat confidently and think they are eating well, isn't it? And it can happen, for some people it can be lunch because that's what they eat when they're at work every day. You can see that. Is that feeding or is that nourishing? You see the difference. Because to tell you the truth, if you are drinking Coke and chips, you can as well drink a cup of cooking oil and go. Or you can as well take five tablespoons of sugar and go. Because all you are eating is one nutrient. We call them empty calories, isn't it? Do you see that some of these things we do? Yeah. So what you have done there for the body is like energy. You have just given it sugar, you have just given it maybe cooking oil, because that's how it works. That's what it knows. So be careful, we have to transit beyond feeding our bodies or feeding our families. Some of us say, I feed my family. You are just feeding, you are not nourishing. These people are not supposed to go they're not supposed to go for a market like a cattle market where you feed a cattle to go and sell, isn't it? That's feeding because you want it to be big and then it gets big weight, you get more money. That's not what people should do. People should not be fed. People should be nourished, isn't it? Okay. Let me talk about something here that I put down as notes, which I think I should share with you, that you should know. By the way, because we need food, we have had a lot of advances. I was hoping Professor Chiko was going to be here because he's in the agriculture. I think he's actually done crop science. Those people go to school to make sure we have enough of this food to be able to feed ourselves. Can you imagine the whole professor making sure that food is what is available? But and they've done it. They've also improved what we call agronomic practices, so that we produce more per hectare, so that there is enough food. And that has been very useful because with that there is no much hunger that you see. At least people have fed, though they are not malnourished, but the hunger has been dealt away. And also because of that, improved agricultural productivity and production, there's improved lifespan, people live longer. Now we don't have many children dying, isn't it? Child mortality and morbidity has gone low because of food. People do not die because they are not having food. But that practice of making plenty food around has also come with some bad things, okay? Now we are taking too much calories, feeding too much. Because of that, there are a lot of processed foods, a lot of animal foods, because there are people who specialize in animal science, some in crop production. All is to make that we have plant foods, we have animal foods, and hunger has been dealt with. We don't have much hunger. But we still have problems because, unfortunately, even then, because we don't do a great job in terms of nourishing ourselves, we still have worldwide malnutrition in this world. Let me give you a bit of statistics. We have increasing prevalence of overweight, and we have statistics. We are going to show you even what is happening here very soon. We have also what we call micronutrient deficiencies. The problem with that is that we also call it hidden hunger. It's very difficult to see that Nduna has micronutrient deficiencies unless it's really extreme. Like when you have night blindness because you lack vitamin A. More recently here in Harare, there was a big outbreak of vitamin B3 problem. Not very long ago, I think 2 years ago, we had a problem here in the city of Harare. By the way, when I'm talking about malnutrition, some people think I'm talking about Ethiopia. We are going to share with you statistics, but also to tell you that last week on the 14th of November, I went to Plumtree District Hospital. Me, standing here. I found that there were 8 children admitted in a children's ward. I'm saying this because people think that malnutrition is in Ethiopia and it's not here. Somalia, in East Africa. And on the 14th, I have the data. I was at Plumtree Hospital. I found 8 children. 8 children with severe acute malnutrition is a lot. That ward is busy. If there were doctors, they would tell you they would be busy the whole night. Actually, they had an overspill to another ward. And I was told that in Brunapek Hospital, which is further down the road, there were 4 of them, children. These are children with severe acute malnutrition. They require to be managed in a hospital or else we lose them. This is not Ethiopia. This is not Somalia. This is here in Zimbabwe. Okay? We have statistics. If we have time, we will show you that we also have a high burden of obesity, overweight here in this country. What it means is that we are dealing with what we call a double burden of what? Of disease. Because as we grapple with malnutrition in underdeveloped countries, we also have a problem with what we call non-communicable diseases that are still troubling us. Then we have communicable diseases. Then we have malnutrition. And therefore, we've got what? A triple burden of disease. That's real. Now, let me share with you a bit of statistics here so that you know the magnitude of the problem we are dealing with. Worldwide, we have more than 820 million people who are undernourished. 820 million. 151 million children who are stunted. These are children who have failed to achieve what we call linear growth potential. 151 million across the world. 51 million children are wasted. Wasted are these ones that I found in Plumtree Hospital. These children drive very easy, carelessly if they are not taken care of. I told you I've worked in this field for a long time. I've worked in these countries like Somalia, I've been there. Ethiopia, I've been there. Nigeria, I've been there. We call them high malnutrition burden countries. Malnutrition is rife, but that does not exclude us here in Zimbabwe. We also have that problem. It's just that ours is a little bit smaller, but it's there and it's real. Can you imagine that more than 2 billion people have micronutrient deficiencies? This is global statistics, but we are going to share with you statistics from this church this afternoon. So you see what is happening here. So you see that things are major, isn't it? Concurrently, the presence of diseases associated with the high calorie and unhealthy diets are increasing. 2.1 billion adults are overweight. 2.1 billion, that's a lot of people, are overweight. 2.1 billion. And this problem has been doubling over the past 20 years. Now, listen to this. I quoted this verbatim from this article that I'm reading from. It says, unhealthy diets are the largest global burden of disease and pose a greater risk to morbidity and mortality than does unsafe sex, alcohol, drug and tobacco combined. I'm going to read it again. Unhealthy diets are the largest global burden of disease and pose a greater risk to morbidity, which is sickness, and mortality, which is death, and more than does unsafe sex, alcohol, drug and tobacco combined. If you combine all these, unsafe sex, alcohol, drug, the people who die from those combined are fewer than people who are dying as a result of unhealthy diets. And this statistics does not exclude Zimbabwe. So some of the people are in this number that I'm talking about. We are part of these statistics. We are not exceptional. Do you see we have a problem? We missed the elder data, but we still have the results nevertheless that we are going to share. Now, having said this, I want to get a commentary from Dr. Mbiriri just to comment over these statistics, what has happened as a result of this booming production of food, making food plenty, particularly cereals and animal fat and all these things. And we have seen the burden of disease that we have. In some of them as simple as how we choose to eat as individuals. Because it's a choice, isn't it? Dr. Mbiriri earlier on talked about, I'm ending now, I'm handing over to her. She spoke about lifestyle diseases. there are some thoughts that if we say diseases of lifestyle, we are like victim blaming. We are saying it's only about someone's lifestyle, which is to an extent. But there are other external factors that affect some of these things, isn't it? Genetics aside. Genetics aside, because there are some people who are predisposed. There are some people who unnecessarily get into trouble because of the way they conduct the choices they make. Remember what the pastor said, let's not overdo things, let's not trouble ourselves. But there's also the environment. So sometimes that's all what is there for me, and therefore I have to make do with that. I'm not saying the lifestyle is not important, but I'm saying there are also circumstances around us that influence the way we behave and the way we set up making certain choices. We'll discuss more about that. But by the way, that does not take away that each one of us as individuals, as collective, as a community, or as a church, we have a responsibility to eat well, isn't it? Maybe at this time I'll rest a little bit and give Dr. Mbiriri to also comment a little bit, and then we will come back to you guys for some discussion. Dr. Mbiriri.
Okay, thank you. So maybe I'm trying to open one slide which speaks to what you were talking about on the determinants of health. Let me just try to. Okay, so I think we can now see it, right? How do I, okay. We can see this one. These are the determinants of health, exactly what he was talking about. So we have, if we are categorizing what causes diseases in 4 categories, we have 10% which comes from genetics, heredity. So 10% of the diseases that we have, it's linked to heredity. And we have another 10% which comes from your healthcare system. Presence or absence of a functional healthcare system contributes to 10% of the diseases that we have. You see, there are certain countries where your maternal and child mortality are almost close to 0 because they have a functional healthcare system. And we have countries like ours where we still have high maternal mortalities because of our healthcare system. So 10%, and we have environment. Environment contributes 20%. Our discussion is going to be on our food environment. So environment contributes 20% of the diseases that we have, and 60% is your behavior, your lifestyle. And from the quotation which Dr. Nduna shared, where he was saying that it is your diet which contributes more than your unsafe sex, your tobacco, your alcohol. So your diet will contributes more. If we are looking at the leading causes of mortality and morbidity globally, you find that number 1 is your coronary heart diseases, which are greatly linked to your diet. And of course, you have issues of exercise. So if your diet, which is high in saturated fat, high in salt, high in sugar, and then you are looking at your number 2, you will have your strokes, as your leading cause of mortality and morbidity. You have your diabetes in that top 5. So predominantly, our leading causes of disease and death globally, and even in Zimbabwe, which is a third world country, we have a lifestyle behavior, and we have also a component of environment. Let me move to, okay, there's this slide I want us to look at. Okay, so from the statistics that he has given us, looking at the burden of disease that we have, what people are eating and what it has caused, we now have a transition in nutrition, what we are calling nutrition transition, from the diets that we used to eat long back and what we are eating now. I want us to look at this. I want us to look at this picture. Is it visible? Can we see that picture? Okay. And then we have this one. Can you see the changes in the picture, the transition? Yes, can I have a hand? What are the changes that you can see in the pictures? Yes, there are hands there at the back, I think. And
TV is now a flat screen. They are smart TV.
okay, we now have smart TVs. What else can you see? You are only seeing a smart TV.
If people are not seeing, maybe you can come to the front.
Yes, maybe you have issues with your eyes. You can come close. Okay, technology advancement. That's what you are seeing. That's good. There's technology advancement.
Shrunk.
Sorry?
The clothes are smaller.
Okay, the clothes are smaller. Clothes have become smaller. Yes, Ruth. Sorry? Okay, you can see the Jojo tank. Okay? The tummy. Okay, so when we are talking about nutrition transition, it becomes the basis of this discussion that we are having here. And when you're looking at nutrition transition, we also look at demographic transition and epidemiological transition. Demographic transitions, Pastor Mbiriri, what is demographic transition? I know you used to teach geography, so you should know demographic transition.
Okay, when I'm talking about demographics, basically study of populations, right? And or a country can experience changes or transformations within its population group. So, like for example, in transition, demographic transition, first demographic transition can be a transition from high death rate, to a point where we now have a lower, death rate and still birth rate is still high. So we're talking about the changes that are taking place within a population group due to factors such as birth control, access to health, and what that is doing, whether it's growing its population base, as in the younger people or the older people and so on. So different countries or different economies would have then different demographic pictures. For example, that Zimbabwe as a developing country would have a broad-based demographic pyramid, and a developed country would have a top-heavy because of its aging population.
Yes, so we are looking at issues of fertility, changes in fertility and mortality. Okay, high birth rates, which are now changing, where people are now giving birth to one child, two children only, and we have a longer life. And when it comes to nutrition transition, I'm sure you have seen nutrition transitions from way back. Let me ask, who is the oldest person here? Do you have someone who's in their 70s? 70s. Do you have someone who's in their 70s? Okay, in their 60s. Okay, we have Gogosta. Gogosta, have you seen a change in our diets? Because we are looking at nutrition transitions. Have you seen any changes from the things that you used to eat long back and now, the things that Simba is eating? Mm-hmm.
The mother to give the child porridge in Redovi, you looked at is very backward. But if you then give them Ceravita and things like that. And even there are some lunch. Used to eat such things. There are something now that my long back, my fellow villagers would actually say it's not jigiwere. So yeah, I think the food has changed very much.
Okay.
There's a lot of sugar.
A lot of sugar.
And we love sugar.
A lot of processed foods
A lot
you
of
mentioned.
processed foods because it's quick, and even we as women, as mothers, as grandmothers, housewives, it's easier to deal with some things in terms of cooking for the children rather than starting from afresh.
Yes. So lots of processed foods, convenient foods, right? Yes, Elder, you had your hand up. Oh, okay. When I mentioned those are above 60, yes.
Yeah, I think the foods we used to eat were predominantly natural and processed. Now we find most is processed. And there's also a bit more protein now than what we used to have. Protein would be more like a specialty. These days, it's protein every day. So I think you find protein goes with salt. So whereas if you eat food in its natural form, you don't need salt. Sugar is also another one. And then the food tends to be very fat. And also it's cooked now. Whereas our food before would be long term. If you eat, like I saw mtakura outside there, you would have to cook it by the fire, so it would be well cooked. Yeah, but lots of food that we used to eat was uncooked, which I think is different from now, where most of our food is. But I think also what has become common is affluence.
Yes.
Brings us to more unbecoming food. We think that by having more resources, we should be eating plenty, whereas the aspect of temperance can also still be applied even with plenty. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you very much. So we can see that we have a transition in our diets. The things we moved from diets which were more traditional to diets which are what we call Western diet, which is a high fat, high salt, high sugar diet, a refined diet, a more processed diet. And this has been brought about by issues of urbanization, technology, like we rightly saw in the on that picture. Technological advancement, we have even mass media. Adverts, they make you want to eat something, even you know that it's not good, but they make this adverts so attractive when they are advertising. Have you ever seen people advertising, Mutagura? There are no adverts on healthy foods, but they advertise unhealthy foods in such a way that it becomes attractive and you actually miss that food. I remember there's a time when there was this advert on what? It was an advert on some KFC reps when they were starting. Some KFC reps, I think it was, I was seeing it on SABC. And it was like when I traveled to South Africa that time when those KFC reps were starting, I really wanted to say the first thing I'll do when I get into South Africa is to go to KFC and buy that rep. So it's these adverts which will which market these unhealthy foods. And it has led to this transition on the things that we eat. Unfortunately, nutrition transition comes with epidemiological transition. When I'm talking about epidemiological transition, I'm talking about your disease pattern, where you find certain diseases, like who is affected, where and what and how, all that. That's your epidemiology. So maybe if I can get a comment on the diseases that we now have, are they the same as the diseases that our grandfathers or our great-grandparents had? What has changed in the disease pattern? What has changed in the disease pattern? Elder Deda, yes?
Infectious diseases.
Yes.
And now we've moved more to what they are calling non-communicable diseases. So diseases like your blood pressure, diabetes, cancer. These now have become the prevalent diseases as opposed to places and say diarrhea or HIV that were very.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, Elder Von. Oh, you're not lifting your hand.
Our masters have and we are now dying like our masters.
Sorry, can you come again? I didn't get
We
that.
have copied the diets of our former masters and we
Yes.
are now dying like them.
Yes, yes. We have copied the diets of our former masters and we are now dying like, yes, we have a hand at the back.
Yeah, because of development and developments and technology, we find that now people of our age, right, we cannot walk the distances that our parents used to walk, or the kind of work that our parents used to do, working in the fields. Now we've got technology, we've got tractors and things like that, but our parents used to wake up in the morning, go into the fields, do the plowing, and later in the evening they do. Now we just go to the field there, we are monitoring, the tractors are doing everything, and the people are doing everything for us. And worse off, because of development and technology again, when you are going to work, you walk only 2 meters to a car, you drive, go to office, walk 1 meter to your office, you are seated throughout the day. And because of that, this is why most of these diseases are now coming up. But our parents never faced those diseases because they were actually exercising without knowing that they were exercising, because the kind of work they were doing in the fields and all the walking that they were doing.
Yes, so they had lots of physical activity, and their diet, like we had mentioned earlier, their diet was not high in fat, it was not processed, like it was not high in sugar. So when you're looking at these high fat, high sugar, high salt diets, they have led us to this epidemiological shift where we are now having non-communicable disease. Unfortunately, for countries like ours, we have not fully eradicated communicable diseases. That's why we had the polio nurses there doing the vaccinations. We're still battling with communicable diseases. And on top of that, we have added non-communicable diseases, and this malnutrition. That's why we are talking about a triple burden. And we are constraining our healthcare system, which is already in intensive care unit, by this nutrition transition. Maybe Dr. Nduna, we can explain later on some of these diseases, how we are linking them to our nutrition to these diseases. Let's look at the food environment. I'd shown that graph which had 20% of our diseases coming from environment. Can we discuss specifically on food environments?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Mbiriri. In the morning, those who were there in the morning, we discussed taking God for his word. That's what we discussed in the morning. And what touched me in this morning's presentation was that if we don't take God for his word, we will suffer if we don't. The explanation was that if we take God for his word, we are the beneficiaries. Do you get it? It benefits who? Us to listen to God. We are the beneficiaries. At the same time, if we don't, we are the losers still. Do you see this paradox? So I think we have no choice, because either way, if we don't, we are the losers. But the good thing is, if we do, we are the beneficiaries, isn't it? That for me touched me a lot, because it puts the burden on me, isn't it, as an individual, to be conscious and be purposeful with what I do with my life, isn't it? Now, I wanted just to reflect on that, because I see these things coming in together, knitting in quite seamlessly, if you look at them. Let's talk about the food environment itself. Remember earlier on, I also spoke about these diseases being lifestyle diseases, but it's not only lifestyle, isn't it? We have also the environment around us, which also impinges on how we make decisions. But what are food environments? What do you think are food environments? This should be, Elder Mashupiko, it's a wild guess. Just guess what it is. What is a food environment? Give it a wild guess. There are no wrong answers. Okay.
Environment that we are in.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are talking about food, maybe the food that is commonly eaten in an environment that you are would eventually then affect you.
Mm-hmm. But also whether it is available or not, isn't it? True or false? True or false? Yes. Whether that food is there, because when we are talking about food environment, we are talking about factors around us that either make the food accessible to us. Accessibility is in two forms: physical access, but also do you have economic access, isn't it? Because the food can be there, but you don't have economic access to it. But sometimes the food may not be there itself, isn't it? I used to go and buy vegetables by that shop near the Chinese embassy. And one day I met Mrs. Sintini there. That's her food environment. She's very close to that vegetable place. But I had to come all the way from Mount Pleasant. And if you were to buy fruits, if you don't have them where you come, you have to come all the way down. So it's the environment are those food is those factors around us, whether physical, economic, or social even. Do you know why I say social as well? I struggle with chicken because my mother doesn't eat chicken. If I'm to eat chicken, I have to prepare it myself. There's a way I have to trick it so that I can eat it. Ruth knows it. If Ruth knows that if they are to prepare one dish, they have to do the chicken my way, or else they do their way and then do another alternative. Because because my mother doesn't eat chicken. I don't eat fish. I eat fish. I struggle with fish because my mother doesn't eat fish. My mother doesn't eat fish at all. And also, if I'm to eat fish, I have to do some tricks to it so that I'm able to eat it. My mother doesn't eat that much eggs. I grapple with eggs a lot. Every time I'm at work, they see me removing yolk. They say, but why are you removing yolk? I said, okay, I have two reasons. One, the yolk is too much fat. I don't eat yolk. If you do me boiled egg, I'll remove yolk. The white, the yellow stuff. Apparently, that's the one that is nice. Always nice things are problematic. Have you ever seen if you give people chicken and you remove chicken skin, they say that's one that is nice. It's true because there's fat there. Chicken skin is very nice. Egg yolk is very nice. If you eat the egg white, it's not as tasty the egg. What am I saying here? I'm saying that's my social environment. That's how I was socialized. Food has a social connotations. So mothers, fathers, The way we socialize our children with food is how they will interact with that food later in life. For better, for worse. For me, there are some things that is better for me because at least I don't eat egg yolk. Remember, the fattest thing from brain is egg yolk. If you put things with a lot of fat, brain here, brain is number 1, egg yolk is number 2. So if you want to cut your fat, also be careful about eating eggs. That's why eggs can only be eaten a certain number of days per week, isn't it? But because we have money now, we want to eat eggs every day, Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Remember what Pastor said in the morning. You have to do things with moderation. By the way, let me give you some other things that you probably didn't know. 1 gram of carbohydrate will give you 4 calories. 1 gram of fat will give you 9 calories. 1 gram of alcohol will give you 7. So when you eat, be careful. The alcohol, I'm giving you alcohol, it's not important to know, it's just good, it's nice to know. It's nice to know, isn't it? I just gave you because I know it. So it's for you, it's nice to know, it's not important. But for protein, for fat, be careful. We don't have time, but we're going to talk about what we call high-density lipoproteins, low-density lipoproteins. In short, good and bad fat is all from the food there. That's why we are saying eat food most from plant what? Plant sources. We're going to talk more about that. Now, so the environment, food environment is your physical, your social, and your economic environment. Things that are around you. There are also what we call food deserts. Did you know that? Some of you could be living in food desert, but some of you also could be living in food swamps. You need to know that so that when you do your purchases, you know what to do. There's also what we call obesogenic environment. An environment that does not allow you to eat well because you turn this. Where is Pastor? Pastor is gone. If you are in Johannesburg, you turn this, you find people are roasting meat here in the streets, everywhere is there. You end up buying there, isn't it? That environment promotes you to eat badly and become obese. You turn this, there's KFC, you turn this side, there's McDonald's, you turn this side. For me, if there's Burger King, I'm in trouble. I become very tempted. I eat it once a day, by the way, I don't eat too much. When I'm traveling, that's why I was telling Dr. Mbiriri that I picked 3 kgs lately is because of the travel. It disrupts my eating pattern. That's my environment in that point in time. You know, food in the US can be very expensive. So now what I do, I go to McDonald's, buy once, and then the whole day I don't eat. It's not good, but that's the environment I'm in that time, and I don't have enough money. Isn't it? But what I'm saying is, Elder Deda is close to that vegetable place so far as the environment is close, as compared to Vundla. So we need to be careful about the food environments around us, but also be careful about food swamps. Sometimes we have so much things around us that we end up not doing the right things because that's where you go and buy, we are busy. You don't take time to go to Mbare. It's a dirty place, but you find many things that are cheap for you. It's another food environment. If I had time, because we don't have time, there's a presentation that one guy did which mapped out the food environment here in Harare, where they put all the spots around where you see what food outlet is there, and you can actually see where these are concentrated, where the good foods are concentrated, and so on. That's our environment. It affects the way we buy food and the way we behave in terms of our purchases. But remember, our economic situation also is a culprit. Because one of the things that nutrition transition does is also the issue with urbanization comes with economic gains and more per capita income. Then people have more disposable income. They think that changing eating styles and eating polenta and eating those things is the best way to go. And giving babies formula is the best thing to. By the way, I'm a very, if I'm sleeping, if you talk about breastfeeding, I can easily wake up even if when I'm sleeping. because it's one of the areas I've studied passionately, and so be careful, or when you want to see me sleeping in church, that's a breastfeeding, I'll wake up. So what am I saying is sometimes we think feeding children with formula and all these things is associated, but breast milk is the best. It's a topic we can talk about the whole day. It's just that mothers don't invite me to talk about these things. I go to places where I get paid to talk about those things, but I can talk about it free of charge. Okay. So briefly, that's what I wanted to mention about. I want Dr. Mbiriri to talk something very special about food environments, which she reminded me as we were discussing, to say there's this other environment which I thought, yes. But in summary, let me summarize this, that nutrition transition that Dr. Mbiriri has been talking about is fueled by the number of things. Urbanization, we've explained this, Chuma has touched about this. Urbanization is a big thing because when we come to urban, or the urban life affects our eating. Economic growth, I'm talking about disposable incomes. Some of us, when we start working, we think eating that other way is the best way, yet we are not eating according to the manufacturer's instructions. Food processing, we've spoken about that, it drives nutrition transition. Mass media, there are people who have been trained to communicate, they just don't say things. They are paid a lot of money to communicate and advertise. If they say it here, you board a plane, go to Dubai and eat. Because they are communication specialists, they are marketers, they know how they've studied your brain, how we behave, and they make sure they use that to make us do the wrong things altogether. That's why we can't stop drinking Coke, no matter how bad it has been said. But there are people who decide to come and put the can, even when there's football, they put Coke there. People who love football think Coke is the thing. Because it's good. So there are people who are trained to do that to confuse us. And then we forget the manufacturer's instructions of how to look after this vehicle. Because there are people who confuse us. Last but not least, excessive intake of beverages that I've spoken about. It affects really our health outcomes. Smoking, I'm not going to mention, it doesn't apply here. But it's snacking, excessive snacking. There are better ways of snacking, but there are some people who just can't stop eating. As long as they say food, they want to munch, they want to eat. Snacking is healthy, it shouldn't be excessive, you should snack the right things. Now, as I wind down, I want to talk about food deserts, which sometimes where nutritious foods are not readily available. Those are deserts. But you also have swamps, food swamps, where the environment has so much things that confuses you. You turn this way, you turn that way. I always say to people, when I go to the States, I find that country very difficult for me because it's just too big. For you to find a supermarket, you have to go. I find it, but I'm used to a small country like UK. You turn this, there's Asda. You turn this, there's Solomon's. You turn this everywhere. And so buying is not a problem. Everywhere there's at a corner, because it's so small, things are everywhere. That's an environment. So they have made it sure that's why here you find that INSCO has been very smart. They made sure that wherever you are, you find it. That's your food environment. Do you know how many chicken inns are in town? Every day, they make sure there's a new shop sprouting somewhere. And the fact that they continue making new shop tells you that they are not running a loss. True or false? If they were running a loss, they would have stopped having more shops. But every corner they put, if somebody gives, I'm sure they go and say, I'm sure they go and offer money to people who have corner shops and say, can we use your corner shops? They put a chicken in there. They go to another one with a corner shop. And people buy because they know that food environment is important. They use it to their advantage. Can you follow? Now I'm going to end there so that this voice, you rest from it. But there were notes I was going to talk about. This would be a good time to reflect on some other things. Do you want to? No, I want you to talk about the internal environment. That's very important because I thought that was, I will allow Dr. Mbiriri to talk about internal food environment, and that will touch a lot of us here. So if you were sleeping, it's time to wake up now because it's coming really home.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Nduna. So maybe from the things that Dr. Nduna has shared, we are looking at our environment, like we discussed about the socialization, obesogenic environments, the food swamps. Do we have control over this type of environment that he was talking about? About the McDonald's, the KFCs, the chicken in sprouting all over. Do you have control over that? You don't have control over that? Okay. Yes?
So I think it was McDonald's were opening a new branch and they needed to situate it there. It was a big war with the Adventist community there.
In Loma Linda, yes.
Yeah, who rejected it. Because I think according to them, it was tampering with their food environment. And they did, so they said, this is an unwelcome development. So I guess in most cases, maybe we're not mindful about that. Just say, well, they have license from the city council, they
can open.
Yeah, they can open WMI or something like that. But maybe in areas where people are really conscious, people can come together and say, well, this is not a welcome development. That was quite an interesting case as it played out in the media, this war between this big company and these people who prioritize their health.
Yes, that's right. Yes, you have a hand.
To say the answer is a yes and a no, isn't do we have
control over the external environment?
So yes, in terms of, let's say I can choose to then go and live out on my farm and raise my kids there, find ways of homeschooling them so that they are not exposed to the McDonald's and all. But then it would be a no if you don't have the economic access to be able to avoid. Maybe you can only afford to live in a certain place. And then they are coming and really we don't have a voice much like what he's saying to say they should come or shouldn't come.
Yes. Okay, so it's a yes and a no. But we now move on to internal food environment, the environment that you have created in your own home. Can you take time to reflect on the things that are in your pantry? What are the things in your pantry? The things that you buy, because that's the internal environment that you can what? You can control. Because you're the one who goes to the supermarket, you're the one who goes to McDonald's, or all these food outlets. And you purchase the things that you bring inside your what? Your house. So we have control over, we may not have control over the supermarkets, what they are putting in the supermarkets and all these food outlets, and we may not have control over that. But the food that is within your home, you have total control of that. The type of cooking oil that you are using in your home, you have control over that, right? The type of meal that you are using in your home, you have control over that. Because when you get into a supermarket, you still find they are selling super refined meal. They have the mixed grain. You just pick your super refined ngwerewere. It's the choice that you're making, and you're creating an internal food environment. When you get into a supermarket, you go straight to get biscuits and sweets, and you bring it home. When your children are looking for snacks, you want maybe time for snacking, the internal environment that has been created by their parents or grandparents is what? Is unhealthy. Because you have the sweets, you have the chips, you have the biscuits. So this is an internal environment that you have control over. We do not have control over the whatever supermarket, but when you get into the supermarket, you are now creating internal environment for your home. That people that are in your house, They will eat things that you have purchased. Because when you go into a supermarket, you choose that you go for Cerevita, which is next to rolled oats. But you pick what? You pick Cerevita, which is highly processed with high sugar. When you get into a supermarket, you will still find a way, when you are buying your rice, you'll find your parboiled rice next to your brown rice. You are picking your parboiled rice, or you're picking your, whatever type of rice that you want, leaving out your traditional rice or your brown rice. So when you are doing this, you are now you have created an internal environment which makes it easy, or like when you are now talking about these epidemiological transitions, of course, at an internal level, at a home level, the diseases that are going to be in your family are linked to this internal environment that you have created in your family. Of course, we spoke about genetics contributing 10%, but now we are now talking about epigenetics, where your environment, like your food environment, interacts with your genes, the things that you are eating. So if you are eating a high sugar, high salt, you are eating lots of coffee, all these things, they will turn on certain genes in your body, which will lead to disease. So you are going to turn on, we all have, like I've given this as an example, that we have like a switch where you are turning on your light on and off. So we all have that switch. And that switch is turned on and off through the diets, primarily through your diet. And so if we are going to have a high-fat diet, a high-sugar diet, a high-salt diet, it's going to turn on genes that are responsible for certain diseases. And it is also diet which is responsible for turning off those genes for disease. So we have seen, like nutritionists who have specialized in epigenetics and nutrigenetics, there's so much data which is showing that we can sometimes say, oh, we have diabetes in my family because my grandmother had diabetes, my mother had diabetes, my uncle, my this. It's not that it was hereditary. It is because you turned on genes for diabetes in your family and you have passed it on. They say that even if your genes are loaded with disease, but it's your lifestyle which pulls the trigger. And even if the certain diseases that we have, like that we can say they run in the family, is because no one runs in your family. Okay? So diseases that run in the family because no one runs, like you're not engaged in physical activity. So when you're looking at epigenetics and nutrigenetics, we are saying the things that we eat are turning on genes. That's why we are now having this epidemiological transition where we are having high non-communicable diseases, because our food is turned on genes. But this turning on and off of genes, it's reversible when you adopt a whole foods plant-based diet. When you're looking at this, like on the nutrigenetics and epigenetics, we say, for example, if you are a female, you are pregnant. The moment you are pregnant and you are on a diet which is high salt, high sugar, high caffeine, high saturated fat, you are turning on genes that cause disease in you. And if you have a fetus, a baby girl, you are also going to turn on genes that cause disease in that fetus. This baby girl, around 20 weeks, they're going to develop their eggs. You are also going to turn on genes for disease in those eggs in your fetus, because of a high salt, high sugar, high fat diet. So the moment that you give birth, you have already affected 3 generations because of diet. This is simple diet. There is nothing like heredity because it was passed on from your grandmother. It's just you and your diet and turning on of these genes. And this happens also with males. If you're eating like lots of fried meats, they will also affect your sperm maturation, sperm quality, all that. So we are having a female who is on a high fat, high sugar, high salt diet, high caffeine, high processed foods, and a male who's also high on that and high on dried meats and saturated and meats which are high in fat. So this one has eggs, they've turned on genes for disease. This male has sperm quality which has been affected. Even it leads to low sperm count. You know, when we are looking at issues of fertility and infertility, it's also being linked to the type of diets that we are eating. Maybe long back we didn't have so much of couples who are infertile. But now, like you can count like so many people that you know, right? So all these things, when you are looking at what then happens, apart from the external environments, when you create your own internal environment, it's going to affect you on a personal level. It ceases to be so many shops around, no areas for exercise. It ceases to be that. It becomes personal because you have created an internal environment which is going to affect the type of diseases that are going to occur in your own family. We still have a huge role to play as we create internal environments for our families.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Doc. We want to change gears a little bit. As I see, we don't have much time, so I know there are two things you still want to hear, which is the results. And we have to talk about the lunches that we had today. Those two things we need to cover. I want to take 5 minutes at very most talking about some other development that is interesting in so far as diverse diets, because the whole idea here is to have a diverse diet that provides you with all the nutrients. The good thing though, God, as ever knowing, knew that some of these things will be very expensive for us and so on, yet we need them. But he made sure that we need them in small quantities, the micronutrients, isn't it? The vitamins and your minerals. They are pretty much found in a wide range of fruits and vegetables, but also the good news is that you need them in very small quantities. But that as it may be, if they are not provided, they disrupt a lot of things in our body systems, metabolically, because they contribute in a number of functions, different ways. Who can tell me what they know, what we call micronutrients of public health significance in pretty much globally to include Zimbabwe? Which were those that we are very much particular about? Those who read. You don't know them? One of them is iron, isn't it? And one of them is what? Vitamin A. And zinc. So there are strategies for kind of dealing with the micronutrient deficiencies. That's why you find mothers, when they are pregnant, they are given iron folate because it's supplemented you, because they already know that is suspect at home you are not getting enough. That's why they give you in the hospital as supplements. They already know they are problematic. It's because we are not following the manufacturer's simple manual that we are sharing with you now. If we were to eat well, we wouldn't probably need those supplements. So one of the measures to do with the micronutrient deficiency, which I said is also called hidden hunger, is supplementation, isn't it? One of them is dietary diversity, to ensure that at household level, you have a diverse diet. Carbohydrate, micronutrients, in that manner. One of the strategies is fortification. Did you know that our maize, by legislation in Zimbabwe, should be fortified? Our meal should be fortified. I hate to talk about sugar fortification because it's like I'm encouraging sugar. By the way, sugar should, only 5% of the energy from the food you eat should come from sugar. Your energy, 10% of your energy should come from protein, only 10. Okay? So we don't need that much sugar in our diets. You need 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. 5 servings, about 500 grams, yeah. So that means 300 grams vegetables, about 200 grams fruits. But don't worry about grams, just say 5 servings. That would do you. Maybe 2 fruits a day and 3 other vegetables every day should suffice. I always say to people, even as a nutritionist, it's very difficult to sit to a balanced diet every time I sit down to eat. But what is important is to be able to know what you ate over one day. That drinking Coke and chips every day is a problematic. Can you see that? You are feeding your body, you are not nourishing it. So 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Minimize sugar, minimize protein from animal sources, use mostly. We are going to summarize at the end, but I'm just giving you an idea. The reason I'm saying this, I was talking about strategies to combat micronutrients. 1, supplementation. 2, diverse diets, which we can do. 3, fortification. I said in Zimbabwe, since 2017, our meal should be fortified. Never mind about sugar. It is, but it's not important. Our oil is also fortified with fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, K. But remember, flour is also fortified. So that's another strategy of dealing with the issue of food. The last one I want to talk about, which is fairly new, is what we call biofortification. Okay? This maize is biofortified maize, is enhanced with provitamin A. It's called the orange maize. It's not Kenya. Okay? We have had problems with people saying it's Kenya, we don't eat Kenya, it's stock feed. No, this is the orange maize, it's fortified with provitamin A. It grows the same way as your white maize, so all the agronomic practices are the same, but you are getting more vitamin A in this yellow maize. This is real. This is a sample I brought from a workshop I attended at Crystal Lodge the other day. I asked them, because I know I was going to do this presentation, to give me so that I can show you. So if you can, try yellow maize. You are getting extra, even growing it, because you do the same agronomic practices, you get it. I think they said you just have to keep it 10 kilometers away from you so that there's no cross-pollination, but otherwise, here you are. Biofortified. This is not genetic engineering. It's different. This is not GMO. And this is orange flat sweet potato. In theory, it should be orange. It's also rich in vitamin A. You can grow it yourself, but you can also buy it. So it's better, instead of buying the other mbambaira, this one gives you some extra because you get your vitamin A here. Okay, if you want information, I can give you more, but here is another technology. This is not GMO. The last is beans, high iron beans. If you go to the supermarkets, you call them, you find them written NOAA 45. They are fortified with iron, they are very high in iron. But the good thing is, as they try to increase the iron, the zinc content also increases. The good thing about these beans is easy to cook, it's very soft, it cooks faster than your standard baked beans. If you want to grow it, I tried it last season, but the season was not good enough. But we have it at home. But this is for demo purposes. It's purplish, very high in iron and zinc. So there's no branding. These don't belong to anyone. I'm just promoting them as an option for you to deal with some of these micronutrient deficiencies. So you have iron, zinc beans called NOAA 45. Even if you want to grow them now, the seed is available in seed houses. The vines for this are also available. You can get the vines and grow your own at the back of the garden. Instead of, it's the same sweet potato, but here is another one that gives you extra nutrients. Eating this you are better nourishing than feeding your body, isn't it? True or false? Yes. At least you are closer to nourishing than feeding. So those are the three. I have slides. Because of time, I'm not going to show them, but I had slides that also show the details. By the way, these give up to about 50% of your recommended daily allowances. Remember, each one of us, depending on our age and sex, we have our recommended daily allowance for each of these. So these will give you, I think this one gives you 100% of your RDS, daily recommended allowance. I think maize gives you up to 50%. And this one is 100. This one is also over 50, this one. So if you eat this, you meet your requirements much easier. I had also slides that has some papers, published papers that have the science to show this has been tested. People have eaten and their blood drawn and gone to be measured before and after to see that when you eat it, it's there in your blood after eating when it's compared to before. It's not fiction, it's science, isn't it? Okay. With that, now we can show the results of today. Yes, Mrs. Fungura.
Thought about the interaction between internal environment and external environment. If your internal environment is underprepared, the external environment becomes more enticing. If you eat before you leave home, you don't see the chicken and you see orange buildings, you'll be just okay. Whereas if you don't prepare and you don't carry even a lunch box, you find that what is the quickest thing? You go to the tuck shop at work, there is chips and Coke. So your internal environment feeds on how you interact with your external environment.
That's very true. That's why we said sometimes we want to blame some people. Some people we want to blame is because of our things. Can you see that? We are creating an environment that is not conducive for people. Let me go to an example that I always give about breastfeeding because it's one thing I do quite a lot. What we have discovered is that if we teach mothers a lot at the health facilities, at whatever, we meet them, and we don't create a conducive environment, kwana mother-in-law who come and say, this is the Vundlas, this is here, this is what we do. These are very important people. Even if this poor young Rora knows what to do, she will tell you that this child is thirsty, you need to give her water when she is 3 days old. Yet we know that breastfeeding has enough, even water, even when it's hot like this. The child gets enough nutrients, enough water from breast milk. But she goes to a powerful lady who tells her, this is a Vundla child. This boy you have seen, which you call your husband, we read him the same way, that's why you even saw him. What are you telling us? And if this child dies, you know what to do. Do you think this lady can do anything? We are therefore making an effort to deal with the environment at home, making sure the grandmother also is conscientized so that she creates a supportive environment to this woman to do the right things. Therefore, if you didn't pack for me a scoff tin, and then I don't even have enough money to go to a food that is proper, I'll buy what I can afford. Chips and Coke is cheap, and you get full. You go and work. Because chips have what we call, because of the oil in there and the drink, there's called what we call high satiety value. When you eat there, you drink Banzi and Coke here, until Blawayo, you don't think about food, you are full. Because what you have eaten has a high satiety value, but it doesn't nourish your body. Okay, that is why we have chronic malnutrition here, because we feed children we don't nourish them. Chronic malnutrition is when children don't grow to achieve. So children are shorter than their heights. It's because they are getting enough to go by. Just enough not to fall this side or fall this side, but they hang around there. You see? And often those children are the ones, now we say, hey, you are konichkoro, hey, njani njani, but we don't build that brain to be able to have the capacity. Let me say one thing before I end. How many of you here have heard about the 1,000 days? You have, I know, and I was going to go to Adra and say, Adra, you are not doing a good job. It's very good that you have lifted up your hands. I was going to scream. Yeah? From conception, when a mother conceives to around the child is 2 years, it's 1,000 days. And we call that a window of opportunity because that's the period within which we can either build or destroy a child. The brain is being manufactured, is going that 2 years. I think the preacher last week spoke about those things, if I remember. But the 1,000 days is the window of opportunity. If you miss them within 2 years, sometimes when you pakiraing, you pakira it after that, there's nothing. So if you forget everything else, 1,000 days, it means we start feeding, we start with the mother as soon as she conceived. She has to eat well, even to be able to feed the fetus. Until the fetus is out, you do exclusive breastfeeding, you do appropriate complementary feeding until, that's why we say mothers, you breastfeed up to 6 months or even beyond up to 2 years. But mothers in, what, it's not true. Anyway, that's not the subject of the matter, but there was a thing that the doctor, the nutritionist in me said I should say it before I sit down because I thought that was an opportunity for me to say it while I'm standing here. I can see 2 hands. Remember, we have the foods, we have the results. So I'm standing between those. I want to give Matisha and her, and then we move to those two. Yes, please, yes.
Of autism, is it because of that transition, you know, the demographic transitions and what we are eating now in comparison to what our forefathers used to eat? Because there's a lot of learning disabilities and autism in the children.
There's a time I did a show with Dr. Chinoperekwe. She's a psychologist. So we were discussing about autism. She's a psychiatrist, yes. We discussed about autism. Of course, it's still an area of so much debate on why we now have high numbers of autism. Some have tried to link them to the measles vaccine, but so many studies are disputing that, and some are linking it to our diet. So it's still an area of research. There's no conclusive evidence on whether is it the vaccines, is it the food, is it, yeah, there's inconclusive evidence on that.
Yeah, I think what we are saying is there's no evidence that shows the cause and effect relationship, a direct cause and effect, because the way we arrived at these things is to do studies that can help us to attribute whether the outcome is a result of the treatment or the effect. So to our knowledge at the moment, there is no like definitive study which says there's a cause and effect relationship. So there are a lot of speculations, and I think a lot of studies are still going on to tease out and to be able to attribute why is that so. What we know are things to do with low birth weights. There are studies that show a relationship between low birth weights and feeding patterns. And that speaks to, remember what I taught about 1,000 days. From conception to until the child is 2 years. So as soon as the mother conceives, it's important that they eat well. And this is not for mothers, it's for us all fathers, because we are also responsible, isn't it? Elder Matisha, you had a question.
Yeah, I wanted to know if we are doing anything to bridge the gap between exotic and indigenous foods in terms of knowledge. For example, if I Google foods that give me one of the micronutrients you spoke of, vitamin C, what I'm most likely to get there is broccoli, peppers, probably, and bananas. But you spoke also of the economic side of as an environment. Aren't we also contributing in widening that gap? Because most of these things which are exotic also are expensive. But in our local communities, we speak highly of Nyeve, we speak highly of Mashamba, of Mtakura, of Matoe. But are we doing enough research to determine what sort of things we get from those things? That will then enable us to say, okay, for certain foods, why can't we have this? What is available now in terms of resource are exotic things?
Yeah, that's a good question. One area that as Zimbabwe, as a country that we have not done well, is to do a food composition table. We don't have a Zimbabwe food composition table. So there are many foods we don't know their nutritional content. But there are some people who are doing studies which I think I could move a little bit on the other side. They are doing great work in terms of insects. There's a heightened interest in studying, understanding the contribution of insects to our diets. Even when you look at the ZIMVAC report, I think the previous ones, we have attempted to collect data on that. Some of these things I don't support it because of my own religious convictions, but the science is going there. So I think we've got a lot of our indigenous fruits that are very nutritious. Unfortunately, the challenge is that we always view them as inferior. And when I sat here a few months ago with Dr. Matsungo and Dr. Chopera, one thing she said, which I caught from that discussion, was that if your grandmother didn't eat it, don't what? Don't eat it. But I think basically she was saying, let's look back. It looks like our traditional foods really are the ones that we should be going by, and they are giving us well. I think it's a good point. We don't have a good database of our local foods here in Zimbabwe. That's an area that we are grappling with, and we've been making noise to say, let's have our own food composition table. Sometimes when we do studies, we infer this from South Africa and regional food composition table. We don't have our own. Dr. Chitsuko tried to do some piece of work. She's the only lady who did that piece of work, but it's not exhaustive. Dr. Chitsuko used to be at the Department of Biochemistry. She did a bit of work on food composition, local food composition tables, but that's not exhaustive. That's the only piece, unfortunately, we have. But I think science is moving in that direction. Now people have interest in insects. I think more and more we can go into more other foods. Yes.
This past week, we were doing the strategy on cancer and the NCD strategy for Zimbabwe. So I think one of the strategic focus from the Ministry of Health is on research on our local foods and indigenous solutions. So hoping that these documents are going to be launched early next year, we hope that we get funding, because we've already realized that as we want to combat these diseases, NCDs, and we need to focus on our own indigenous solutions. So we are looking at our indigenous foods and also indigenous herbal treatments that are available. So it's being documented as a strategic focus for the country.
Just to add another policy piece, I heard from a meeting 2 days ago that the food fortification strategy has just been signed by the Vice President, who is also the Minister of Health and Childcare. Because the government and the ministry is recognizing the problems we are talking about here. So the food fortification study, the new one, has actually included a component on biofortification as a strategy to deal with micronutrient deficiencies. The previous one didn't have a component of biofortification. It had other strategies, but the new one now has a component of biofortification. My friend, you have that computer with you. Now we want to beam the results. And then we spend about 5-10 minutes talking about the diets, and then we want to relate them to what we've been talking about. And we need to be out of here at 5. Please be with us. Can you please help connect to the Wi-Fi, to that thing there, and then we can beam. So, by and large, remember we said we are grappling with malnutrition as in under and over. Because I don't have time, but if you read, how many of you know about the Zimbabwe Vulnerability Assessment Committee reports, which is done annually? It's a good read. It's not a very long document. It's a PowerPoint kind of a report, so you can just flip and it will give you good ideas of what's happening. The reason I'm saying that is you can see there that we have a problem with undernutrition, overweight, and malnutrition in children, particularly stunting and wasting. So what we are talking about here is not fiction, it's something that the country is seized with in trying to deal with, isn't it? The statistics are there, the evidence is there. So whatever you see in global statistics, we are part of that statistics. And it is upon us really to follow the manuals, the manufacturer's manual, to try and mitigate those challenges. I think we need to break the transition somehow. And sessions like this are really to help us help ourselves, okay? It's not easy, but it can be done. Dr. Mbiriri, can you find someone? So it's not easy, it can be done. We need to be careful about the environment, make sure it doesn't affect us in the wrong direction. We need to be knowledgeable. Remember, let's nourish and let's not just feed. I want to give Dr. Mbiriri to speak to this.
Okay, thank you so much. So these are the results that we have collected in the afternoon. Oh, sorry. We have, like from what we are saying, from underweight, actually I didn't expect that we have someone who's underweight. But true to what Dr. Nduna is saying, we are grappling with both sides of malnutrition, undernutrition, and overnutrition. So at Mount Pleasant Church, today is 3 December 2022, we found that we have about 10% people who are undernutrition, we are undernourished, like they have, we have underweight. And we have about 42% we have normal weight. This means that 58, right, that's 58%, right? 58% of us are malnourished. One way or the other. Over half of the church, at least those who were present today, over half is malnourished. That's 58% of us are malnourished, with 10% being, sorry. No, normal is normal. That's why we have 42%, we have normal weight. So we have, like, we have undernutrition, right? So we have these people who are underweight, and we have overnutrition. When you're looking at malnutrition, we have two aspects, the under and over. So 42% of us have normal weight, which means 58% are malnourished. And of these 58, 10% are underweight. And then 38 are overweight and obese. So those are our results. We just use the BMI. So more than half the church is malnourished. More than half the church is malnourished. So we have not done the statistical significance of our results, but just using the statistic that we have more than half of us, it means we need more health promotion programs because over half are malnourished. Either we are eating the wrong things, we are just feeding ourselves, not nourishing ourselves. That's the evidence of our results. We have not done the blood sugar and the BP, but at least just using the BMI, we need more. Maybe the incoming health director will do more programs on at least, because our results are not as good as we may want them to be, because we are people who know. I don't think we have a problem with knowledge. We are actually oversaturated with the things that we are supposed to do. We are oversaturated with what we are supposed to eat, how many hours of sleep. We don't even need all this, because every time we are singing celebrations, we are singing all these things. But it's behavior change which matters. After knowing all this knowledge, and we still have over 50% people are malnourished. When we are supposed to, our knowledge should reflect in our practices.
I think we don't have a problem with knowledge.
We don't have a problem with knowledge.
To mothers or when I talk to people, knowledge is not a problem. We have a problem to change from knowing to doing. And I think some of them are barriers that we have to remove. Behavior change, we need to remove barriers. Some of the barriers could be the environment. Could be one we need to remove the barriers. So we need to help ourselves to try and remove the barriers. So that's what we are. You can see that we have challenges, but I think it's not all lost. We can redeem ourselves. There's a chance to do that. Yes, Mrs. Matish.
Is that on? Yeah. To cook more. Okay, we want to go to the, Vundla, you are combusting, eh?
This one, I have a serious question. In our family, there's 5 of us. You know my family. Voi is the only one who is normal. Most of us are this side. Can we have a home-based PMI? That takes into account the African born, the work that we do, because we are generally, we do a lot of manual work and we have to be fit, like slaves, you know. If we are normal and this side, you can't function in our environment.
What?
I think, Vunja, all your family members are under normal or the other side. None of you can be overweight because you are tall. Eh? Who's that? No, I don't think so. Give us your height.
There's one data point that we removed. It was number 9. There was some missing statistics, so we couldn't calculate that. I suspect, but you were not number 9. You were quite early enough. All right, we are going to tell you. We don't want others to know. We are going to tell you what yours was. Is there a hand?
Maybe from what you have said about your family, yes, I think BMI, we can say it cuts across different populations. The Asian population is the one which has a bit different BMI, where your overweight starts at 22. For the rest of the population across the world, we use this. But of course, we can do the waist-hip ratio, right? We didn't do the waist-hip ratio. We didn't do the mid-arm circumference. But maybe next time, we'll do the waist-hip ratio, because it will tell you, because we are looking at central obesity. Because if it is just an issue of you having high bone density and all that, when we combine your BMI with waist-hip ratio, we should be able to see issues of central obesity. So I think next time we will add waist-hip ratio, and it will at least address these family BMI issues.
And if need be, we can bring proper tools. Yeah? And I can bring a height board here, standard height board, that can measure up to 3 meters. We can measure it very accurately, and we can get the right figures, okay? If need be, we can bring the correct tools. We can bring more tapes. We don't have many tools like the forceps here. I don't think we don't have, but we can do other studies. This was a bit rudimentary, but it's indicative. It's very indicative, and it's very suggestive of what is happening. Now, let me tell you one other thing which is going to be important when we discuss our diets now. I know we are running out of time. There is what we call protein quality, okay? I think the standard measure for protein quality is egg, right? It's calculated around the egg, but that's not important. But unfortunately, we know that protein from animal source is the best protein in terms of quality of protein, okay? And quality of protein is determined by the composition of the amino acids, which are the small components that make up the protein. Now, what I'm saying is very important because it will speak mostly to our diets today, what we call protein complementarity. Often the limiting amino acid we lack in cereals like maize or whatever is what we find in pulses or legumes. And the one that we also is lacking in pulses or legume, we find it in cereals. What does that mean? What does that mean? So if you combine a cereal and a legume, you get a better what? Protein quality. Cereal, we are not talking about cornflakes. Oh, we are talking about your starches, your grains. That's classification of foods. Okay. Did you get that? So the only plant protein that has very proteins of high biological value, sometimes they call it first-class proteins. What is it? We use it a lot here because I think it's a beef substitute. Soy. Yeah. That's why we are eating a lot of soya, because it's like a meat substitute. So the protein quality of soya is as close to meat protein as possible. It's the only vegetable, plant protein that is of good quality. That's why we are using it for patties and chunks and so on, if you didn't know. Because it's close to as much as possible to thing. So it means, therefore, if you have mtakura with the beans and the thing, and the chibage, do you see how you have just simply made a very good protein? You get your energy from chibage, you get your protein from there, and you get good protein. You can eat that, and then you eat your vegetables or pick a fruit. You have eaten a balanced diet. You have eaten well. Do you see that? So most of our diets, if you look at our mtakura ways, Mrs. Maiswa, the kideris. Kideri is a mixture of, those who have gone to Kenya, they mix maize, ground nuts, round nuts, and, which is mtakura in our case. We ate a lot of it. Already there's complementarity there, do you see? I thought I wanted to make that because most of our diets that is going to show us, are you able to beam those? We're molded around that and we're getting good quality protein from those simple diets. So these are the iron beans I was going to share with you, but we didn't have enough time. There's iron, there's orange sweet potato. Move again. Wait. Okay, that's fine. We want to show you the. So we will go, there are no names, but we'll just be going through them and say what you think about it, you know, in terms of what we've discussed here. And then, in some others, we can quickly suggest some improvement and so on.
So I think someone who gets breakfast, yekutojya mtakura, and a fruit, you are way better than someone who is eating cornflakes, someone who is eating white bread and egg and sausage. If you are eating your mtakura and you get your fruit, you are good. Yeah, in fact, you have nourished your body than this person who has just fed his body by eating cornflakes, cerevita, white bread, egg and sausage.
By the way, this food environment thing, these people are very clear. I discovered more recently that because people were seen to be enjoying bacon, which is pork and you people are not eating.
Mm-hmm.
Now they produce something that is looking like bacon, made from beef, so that you can also sit in.
And even made from soya, from like the vegetarian bacon.
But
it's still processed.
It's made from meat.
Yeah, this. Yeah.
The sausage is beef, so that you also eat those bad things. They are there to make money. So there's bacon from pork. There's, I don't know what you call it when it's not from pork, but it's called, which is what? Bacon. And people are buying it. These people are clever. But is that the best food we have? Bacon is the worst food you can ever think of in terms of cholesterol. So one other thing is they are finding the presentation. Bad and good cholesterol. So based from animals, unfortunately, that's why we are saying for children, we need to socialize them with food much more so that their taste is not adulterated. Already, if they have that taste, if you introduce these things that lean meat, they won't enjoy it. To high fat meat, which tastes nicer, but has a bad health implications.
I also think that as mothers, one of our challenges is when you're preparing the healthy foods that we know are healthy, and your children, when they refuse, you always are ready with an option which is wrong. Because they know that if they say, I don't want mutakura, you're still going, auntie, mupe serevita. So this child is not going to develop taste for the healthy foods because there's always an option. When you are serving the healthy foods, you give them an option. Remove those options of your processed foods and high salt, high fat diets. Okay, so let's look at the foods that we served today. It's not there. I think this was rice with peanut butter, right? Yes, rice with peanut butter. So we have already fortified your cereal grain, which is rice. You have added peanut butter to make it more nutritious. We had the different sadzas that we had. We had sadza remunga, sadza regio, right? It was sadza remunga, sadza regio. So your small grains are way better than your maize grain, white grain, except if you're moving to the biofortified maize grain. Mufushwa, right? This was mufushwa. This was still sadza, your small grains, which we are promoting that it's better for you to eat your small grains because small grains are high in fiber compared to your sadzare white. So if you are eating your fiber will regulate your glucose levels. So the way your glucose is released into your blood is regulated. If you're eating a high process, okay, so we have mtakura there, which we spoke about, a combination of your cereal grains and legumes.
And remember, it applies to rice as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Roasted peanuts. Your roasted peanuts would be a good snack compared to what? To chips and all those things that you are giving your popsicles. And we had nopi.
What do you think about nopi? The yellow stuff? What obvious nutrient do you think about for the yellows? Yes, your bright colors, yellow, those bright red colors, often your vitamin A there, isn't it? That's why the new variety of sweet potato is yellowish orange because of the carotene, which is a vitamin A precursor, or carotene, which is converted into vitamin A.
And when you're looking at the studies that have been done on centenarians, people who live longer than 100 years, you find that these sweet potatoes, the yellow sweet potatoes, the purple sweet potatoes, are one of the foods that are mentioned, for example, for people in Okinawa, Japan. I'm sure you know about these studies where, the blue zones. So in one of the foods which is mentioned are your yellow sweet potato. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think it's, but maybe we can get a comment on the food that we ate. What's our overall comment on today's potluck? Is it something that you can do in your house to have regular days of eating traditional foods? Do we do that? Is it even possible? Maybe getting a comment on the food that we ate. Yes, Elder Deda. Oh, sorry. Oh, Elder Chuma, sorry.
Yeah. The type and quality of food that we had was so good, so much that next time when we have potluck, it shouldn't be different from what we had this afternoon. Anything from that, then we are not following our health mission.
Do we have someone who missed meat today? You did.
One of the easier things for you to be able to know about whether your diet is good is the more colors, the merrier, you are more likely to. That's why we talk about what we call household dietary diversity. We've got about 12 foods. So we always see how much of the 12 are households able to eat, because if you eat more of those, you are more likely to meet your micronutrient requirements. So you need to that. So for these ones, here is white, we've also the brown ones, and they come in different colors, so it's also make your plate as colorful as possible. Remember, we eat with our eyes first, then we go on to taste with our mouth and tongue. So this can also be attractive to kids when I've seen people putting turmeric to rice, making it yellow, then they put a lot of carrots again, then the color is one color. By the way, I'm a nutritionist, but I have a catering background, so sometimes I assess diets, though I don't make comments. So we mentioned about chunks, being one of those that has the closest quality. This is just a demo for you to see. We have a lot of other small grains here, veggies here. The trick about these ones, they are okay. The only thing we need to be careful about is how you process them. That's why we have she knows we have some dryers that we train people to dry them so that you don't boil them. If I come to your household, please don't give me food with brown vegetables. It's just I'm eating nothing. Vegetables should be crispy and green when we eat them. So don't boil vegetables. With vegetables, you saute vegetables. You saute vegetables or carrots. Don't boil them, just a little bit, and then you saute. They should be green and crispy so that we retain a lot of nutrients. Some of the nutrients like vitamin C are very labile. If you heat them, we are just eating nothing. So cook vegetable as minimum as possible. But those who want to mix, do your vegetables last and then save, okay? Don't put your vegetables and then go on to do sakura ring and then, When you are about to save, then that's when you do your vegetables. Don't boil them because we end up just feeding bodies. We need to nourish these bodies. Mm-hmm. So be careful. The way you cook these things is also very important. Yes, so this was.
And there are people who like to add soda in your vegetables. Maybe you're making muriwo wemodzi, or you're cooking derere. Your soda will react with your vitamin B. So you may have your dark green pumpkin leaves, because your soda will make it dark green, like it will have a bright green color, compared to the one which does not have soda. So your soda is going to kill your nutrients that you want. So I'd rather cook it without putting soda.
That's why you find in hotels the vegetable is green all the day. It's not possible. It's because most of them use soda to cook. And therefore, we are not eating anything there. It's just been, all the nutrients have just been. And people also cook vegetables and decant water. Yeah. I've seen people do that. So they cook they boil them, and then they decant water. You are decanting all the nutrients.
Better to drink.
You would rather drink that water if you can. So these are the small things that can prevent you from feeding your body to nourishing it, isn't it? So it's nice that you have these things, know them, just be careful. So that's...
Yeah, with that water that you're using, like maybe you've boiled your butternut and it had excess water, you've boiled your pumpkin, you can actually put that water in your ice cube trays. And then you use it to make your rice, or if you can't drink it, you can use it to maybe mix it with your gluten when you're making your gluten steak. You can use it on your other dishes at least.
So that's why chefs, when they do salsa, do you know what they do? All those offcuts that they get from vegetables, they don't throw away them, they boil them, they make what is called sauce that they use to cook. I thought that is clever. We should also do it. And I see people, even when you, so yeah, be careful the way you cook, prepare your veggies, because you lose a lot of, vitamins are divided into what we call water soluble and fat soluble. So when you boil your veggies, all your water soluble vitamins will dissolve and go. So, but your fat soluble, that's why we are saying 5% of your, we need a little bit of fat because we need it to vitamin A stuff. Those that are fat soluble, they need that as a media for them. They dissolve only in fat, not in water. So we need all those things together, okay? All right, this is not a cookery session, but it's just, we are putting science into so that you can understand these things. Are there any questions? Yes, Elder Mashupi, as we want to end.
All right, I just want to hear your comment about, of late there is some drinks that are being sold that are said to help detoxify the body. When you drink them, they clean the system out. What's your comment on that? There's a popular one that is going around in Kunzi Kombucha, but I'm told it can also intoxicate you.
When you're looking at, I think these solutions that come like your detox drinks, and they are almost like your quick solutions to health problems. When you're looking at health, it should be something which is sustainable, and it should be a lifestyle. If this detox is something that you can drink every day of your life, so it is a good thing. But if it's something which is coming as a quick fix to your bed, I know one person who, she can take her children out, they eat cakes, they eat all these fast foods, and when they get home, she gives them this detox juice, she gives them charcoal, she gives them like she wants them to vomit, and after eating all these things. So there are people who want to live unhealthy lifestyles, and they will move to these detox things and saying that, okay, I can then detox after 3 months. You go, we have Christmas season, you are eating all things that you want and what. So this is not a sustainable. Health is about a lifestyle which is sustainable. When you are eating a diet which is high in fruits and vegetables, if you are getting your savings, 5 savings of fruits and vegetables, you can get to 7, you can get to 9. This will help you to detox. When you're eating your savings of vegetables, 7 savings of vegetables a day, like you're moving from, because we are looking at your 5 savings, which we mentioned, it's like for average. Now looking for optimum living, and when it becomes therapeutic, addressing certain conditions, you can move to 7, you can move to 9. So eating your healthy vegetables, you can do your own juicing. Maybe you're just taking your vegetables, you make juice. And even when you're looking at juices that you're making, we are looking at the fiber that you lose out when you put your fruits in a juicer compared to a blender. So there are so many dynamics. But as an individual, I do not recommend your quick fix solutions. Even your diets, your weight loss diets, which you can, people can go on a weight loss diet for a month, for 3 weeks, and you lose 20 kgs, is also not healthy. So adopt a healthy lifestyle. Eat enough savings of vegetables. Eat your small grains. If you are eating a whole foods plant-based diet, a whole foods plant-based diet means your diet is 90% natural foods. If you are having that diet, you won't look for these quick solutions of detoxing and doing all this. Just drinking plenty of water, drink your 2 liters of water. If you're breastfeeding, get to 3 liters of water like that. So if you're having this type of lifestyle, you are not likely to look for these solutions, your quick fix solutions. I don't know, Dr. Nduna.
Yeah, I also not a fan of those quick solutions. I mean, it's not sustainable. Why can't you just do the right thing first of all? Now, I have 2 last slides, and these ones are your life jackets. If you want to forget everything else, it's okay. But if you get this summary, you should be able to help yourself. This is your life jacket. In case you will land on water, this is how you will be saved. After that, I think this will form the end of our presentation today. It summarizes basically what we've discussed today. We are talking about diets that promote low risk of major chronic diseases and promote overall well-being. Number 1, these are diets where protein sources are primarily from plants. This is what we've been saying, including soy foods. I talked about soy foods, which is one of the things we are demonstrating there. Legumes. Legumes are also called pulses. Nuts, you can see them here, they are here. Fish, for those who can do fish, or an alternative source of omega-3 fatty acids. These you need several times per week, with optional modest consumption, optimal modest consumption of things like poultry and eggs. I told you about the egg yolk. If you are to avoid a lot of cholesterol, please be careful about the egg yolk. Very, very fat, second from brain, if my science still remember very well. And low intakes of red meat, if any. Low intakes of red meat, if any, especially processed meats. That's number 1. Number 2, your fat mostly should come from unsaturated plants. Remember, I talked to you about good fat and bad fat. Low density lipoproteins, high density lipoproteins. Bad fat, good fat. So good fat is one you get from mostly plants, and it contains unsaturated fatty acids. And so you need very low intakes of saturated fats. Carbohydrates primarily from whole grains, if you are to take them, with low intake of refined grains. Remember, we spoke about that. So I'm really summarizing this. And less than 5% of energy should come from sugar. I mentioned this earlier on, didn't I? So we need to limit intake of sugar. Remember, energy cannot be destroyed. One of the reasons why we peak weight is because of what we call physical activity levels. You need to balance your intake and expenditure. If you take more and expend less, the body doesn't destroy that energy. It converts it from one form to another. From sugar, energy to fat, and then it starts accumulating on your body. Energy can never be destroyed. So as much as possible, one of the tricks in limiting weight gain is to limit calories. One of the easiest ways is your salad should be more of vegetables and less of starch. The quantity of vegetables will fill the space, you feel full, but yet you don't have much sugar. That's one of the clever ways of doing it. At least 5 servings of fruit and vegetables, excluding potatoes. Why? Why, Mrs. Vund? They are a source of starch. There's very high energy potatoes. Even these sweet potatoes, eat them with caution. You want your vitamin A there, but they also bring other things. Pastor spoke well this afternoon. Everything in moderation. Don't take anything excessive. Everything in moderation. Remember, if we don't take God at his word, who are the losers? This is the Sabbath school. If we don't take God as his word, the losers is us. If we take him for his word, who are the beneficiaries? Remember, this is what we are saying here. I think I was going to my last one as we close. Modest dairy consumption. Milk is good, but in modest. Why? It has fats in there, remember. True or false? It has got animal fat, which I said you should limit animal fat. So milk, that's why we need to take it with caution. Okay? So healthy diets should have appropriate calorie intake. Remember, energy cannot be destroyed. If you do a lot of carbohydrate and you don't exercise like Mrs. Matisha, something will happen to you. Because that energy you are taking in cannot be destroyed. So, appropriate caloric intake. You should know how much activity you are doing, so that one of the things to do that is monitor your weight over time and see what you eat. That means if you are remaining constant, it means your expenditure is equal to intake. If you start tilting the other way, you are taking more and expending less. And if you start tilting the other way, it means that you are doing well. If you want to kite weight, you are using good tactics. Your expenditure is higher than intake. So it works better for you. The diet should consist of diversity of plant-based foods. That's the key. Low amounts of animal source foods, we have said this. And fats, small amounts of refined grains. Small amounts of added sugar. Small amounts of highly processed foods. And that is your life jacket. With this, as you can see, I wanted to read something, read for yourselves, I think is Child Guidance, chapter 61. You'll find it talks exactly, that's the Pain of Inspiration, Ellen G. White writings. It speaks exactly to what we have just summarized here. I would have read it for you, but we don't have time, exactly the way it is. It speaks to this. And this is coming from, you see that paper I've quoted there. It's a very scientific paper that has just been published. Science is confirming what the Bible is saying and what was written by the pen of inspiration. Scientists are also coalescing in that direction. This is a very recent paper done by a group of over 19, I think, scientists who are really in tandem with what the manufacturer of this body has recommended. Science is coalescing in that direction. There's no other way. So if we believe in God, God is saying the same thing. If you want to believe in science, science is telling you the same thing. So read Child Guidance, chapter 61. You find it summarizes exactly as we have done here. I don't know if anyone is combusting. I don't want to leave someone combusting here with a comment or with a question. This is kind of the end of our presentation. After this, I see that Elder Mashupuko is still here. I will ask him to come and thank the Mbiriris and on behalf of the elders. Elder is there. I was not seeing you. Elder Klaba, please, after this, we would ask you to come and give a vote of thanks and on my behalf, thank the Mbiriris who have really, were gracious to come, and I know they were busy. Dr. Mbiriri was telling me she was in Mtare where they were doing this strategy. She came over. I think they investiture yesterday, and they graciously agreed to come and bless us today. We had the spiritual word from Pastor in the afternoon during divine service. We had the physical part of the nourishment this afternoon. At least for me, I wouldn't wish for better. On behalf of myself, I want to thank you both for really coming out to be with us here. This is on my behalf. Really, I really appreciate this. And the elder will thank you on behalf of the church. And I want to thank you all church members for hanging around. We hope that you got one or two things from today's discussion. We will welcome comments of how we could do it better. We were trying to make it as informal as possible, but it also delivering as much content, trying to balance. But we can welcome comments on how to do it better next time. We will really appreciate that. I want to recognize Pastor Chifamba, who is also just coming. Pastor, we had a wonderful time with the Mbiriris. I think that the church was blessed by their presence here. We had Pastor Mbiriri during divine service, and we had the shepherdess this afternoon discussing on the topic of health, food environments, diet and nutrition outcomes. I don't know, but the people will say themselves, at least for me, I learned quite a lot, but we hope that the church benefited a lot from the service of the Mbiriris today. And Pastor Elder, I would want to call you upon to thank them on behalf of the church. And then we have come to the end of our today's session. May God bless each one of you today till we meet again. By the way, I'm the outgoing director, and it's been a pleasure to work with all of you. In particular, I want to thank the Dockers today. You supported this program, and it succeeded because you guys pulled your weight and supported it. Thank you very much. I pray that as the new incoming director comes, you support them as much as you did. I have my own rubbish things. I'm not perfect. I try. But you supported me. We got things done. It could have been better, but this is what we could do given the circumstances. So I want to thank you, church. Thank you, Dockers, for today. And thank you very much, Elder. There you go.
And what does the church say? Thank you so much, Dr. Nduna, for leading this discussion and facilitating the preparations. Yeah, we are in full agreement that our problem as a nation or also as Adventists is that whereas literature says what we should be and what we are not in tandem. And there is a growing new epidemic of non-communicable diseases. And recently, within the Ministry of Health, they set up a new department just looking at non-communicable diseases, because this is what is coming up actually in the top 10 of causes of death in adults. So this discussion and lesson really comes, oh, by the way, I'm not Minister of Health now, I'm at church. Okay. Yeah, so I was saying it's coming really at the right time. And remembering that as Adventists, we should bear the light in all aspects. Pastor Mbiriri, thank you so much for allowing God to use you. I remember at some point, some years back, it was said at the appearing of Christ, those that eat meat, they will first faint. While us that do not eat meat will just go one time. Yeah. Yeah. But then when we are midway, then Christ will say, okay, they're also trying. Let's wait for them. So that lesson really was bringing things into perspective as God wants it for us to understand, so that we remain focused on the overall goal, that the owner of the Volvo should be what? Should be glorified. Because I was reading an article which was saying, you know, despite the advancement of science, even scientists don't fully understand how the body really functions. So, because of that, the person who drafted the manual for this Volvo knows best, and thank you for really articulating the issues well. I'm sure we all benefited, and Dr. Mbiriri also for the afternoon program. Thank you so much. It was really edifying to learn. And to cap it all, I think putting the things into the self, applying it into the self, into what we eat, and also into our measurements and so forth, it really creates this new awareness. Say, okay, there's something that at an individual level I need to do, or which I'm doing but I'm not doing well enough that I need to do, because the overall aim is that the healthier we are, the better we are in a position to complete the task that the Lord has given us. So really like to thank you. May the Lord continue to bless you as we journey through this life where we face the different sources of oppositions into what God has commissioned us to do. And for allowing you to come to us, may He really, really bless you and your family as well as your ministry. Thank you very much. While Pastor was not here, I'll request him to close with a word of prayer.
Shall we pray? Our kind Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for the health department that was with us throughout the day. Thank you for Dr. Nduna. Thank you for the Mbiriris. And help us, Lord, who are listening, that we might be hearers and doers of your word. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder. I saw your face when I was going to hand over to Pastor. Just a reminder, the UZ students are here for the pledges that we requested for, that they've been requesting to go and execute on our behalf in Zaka. Do you want to say a word or two? I hope you not go to Zaka now. It's just a word or two, but the message really is just to remind the church of the pledges that we have asked for to support the university students. Maybe just a word or two.
Afternoon, church. I greet you all in the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, so we are kindly asking for your support as students and as part of Mount Pleasant Church, that you support us, cash or kind. There are a lot of things like there are foodstuffs which our president sent, I think, to the church board members, which you can support with. Those who can support with cash, they can do the same also. We are leaving on the 9th. So during this week, we are always willing to come and collect anyway. So please, you can also get in touch. Those who want to do pledges, who didn't pledge, we are still around up to the end of the Sabbath. May God bless you. Thank you very much.
Amen. So as we file out, the church will request the church board members, both old and new. Huh? Is that correct? Maybe the young ones will go out. Okay, the 2022 board members and also the 2023 board members to still stay behind.
Thank you very much. I think it's all done. We can sing as we file out. Siyathaba ngothando luyasithabisa lusenza sibenengco kwabanye umusa inkosi ithanda bonke bayo. Sifesu kuba njengayo, siyathaba ngothando luyasithabisa, lusenza sibenengqondo wabanye umusa.